Hi, welcome to WAVY Digital Desk. I'm your host, Sarah Good, and today we're going to talk to Antone Green, Prevention Coordinator at Hampton-Newport News Community Service Board, CSB. So let me bring him in now. Hey, Antone, how are you doing today?
Doing well, and you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to talk about drug education prevention this week. It's Red Ribbon Week, and the goal of that is really drug prevention, education, advocacy. It is an important conversation, and as prevention coordinator, just wanted to talk to you about your work and your organization. So first, can you tell us exactly what Hampton-Newport News CSB is?
Gotcha. So the Hampton-Newport News Community Services Board is a premier provider for behavioral health care services on the peninsula. The Hampton-Newport News CSB was one of the first CSBs created over 50 years ago, and we are one of the largest in terms of clients, staff, and programs. We offer a wide range of services for individuals that are affected by mental illness and substance misuse and developmental disabilities. So we offer comprehensive care in the areas of prevention, early intervention, community-based patient services, such as individual and family counseling, addiction treatment, case management, emergency services, peer recovery services, forensics and jail-based, integrative care, day support and treatment, as well as residential and acute inpatient services.
Wow, so you all do offer care to a lot of the community, so they should feel, without money being an obstacle, that they can come to you all for help in any way that might be.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
So if a person has insurance or their insurance doesn't cover it all, we help them apply for insurance, apply for Medicaid expansion, and secure additional insurance to help cover some of those costs.
Okay. And then, as your role as prevention coordinator, can you just give a little bit of what that entails in terms of, helping the community or helping those at CSB, feel like they have the right education and sort of understanding?
Gotcha. So yeah, as prevention coordinator, I'm displaying information to the community, so providing that education and awareness. We have a couple of areas that we address um, within our priority from the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services. So we talk about coalition development, which is increasing our capacity in our community. We address adverse childhood experiences and trauma and resilience. So that trauma that affects that how we think, feel, and act. We also address some underage use, so underage drinking, tobacco and vaping, marijuana use, opioid use for youth and adults, and over-the-counter safety medication. We address providing, like I said, education and awareness about problem gambling and gaming. And we also address mental health. So mental health promotion, getting those 8 dimensions of wellness in your life, and addressing suicide prevention as well.
And how important is it in this drug prevention education to tackle sort of the topics of mental health and suicide prevention?
Gotcha. So yeah, that kind of ties in hand in hand. You might be struggling with anxiety or dealing with bipolar symptoms, but you pick up a substance to cope or to handle that stress. So they kind of go hand in hand, and important to know how one can affect one another, especially in our young people, because brains aren't fully developed until about the age of 25. So that early use of substance can affect that brain development and have those outcomes currently and later on in life.
Right. And a big thing for Red Ribbon Week is, educating youth. And as you said, brains under 25 are still, being developed. How do you target that young community so they know, what the dangers might be, how to avoid, and how do you give them that education?
Yeah, so we do programs in the schools and after schools. We do a lot of community awareness where we do just open talks, hear from the youth, and have even the young people present, or middle and high school youth present to those early elementary students about the impact and making those good choices early in life.
Right. And how important is it for those youth, whoever they are, to have a support system, to have somebody there, whether it's a guardian or a parent figure or somebody in their life that they can turn to? How important is that support system for them?
Yeah, so that's the number one, most
Hmm.
important protective factor, what we call, that builds up that self-esteem, builds up that confidence, build up those good, healthy relationships, to having that caring adult or a provider in their life to help them guide into making those wise decisions and feeding into their interests on a regular basis.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about your Strength in Families program and just talk about how you all do help with that aspect of prevention, which is having a strong family unit or having a strong, care unit, whatever that might be.
Yep. So we offer the Strengthen Families program, which is a whole family program where we talk about communication skills and having family routines and making healthy choices together as a family. We teach the adults how to communicate with your young people, and then at the same time, we have a session with the young people addressing how to communicate your feelings and your thoughts, and how to have a conversation with your family, how to have a family meal together, how to engage in those family routines on a regular basis to help build that family bonds and build up those protective factors so you can reduce some of those risk factors.
Right. And in terms of, Strengthen the Families program, is that something that you all, offer to anyone in the community? Is that only offered to people that are currently in the CSB program?
No, yeah, we offer it to the general community. There's only one requirement within our Strength and Families programs, depending on which curriculum that we're using. So you have to have a child in your household, because it could be a grandparent that has a child within that age range of 6 to 12 or 10 to 14.
Okay. Um, and then can you talk a little bit about, your work with the community, with grassroots and community-based partnerships, schools, and sort of what you all do externally in your organization?
Yeah, so we try to partner with the community as much as possible. We can't get into every door to present this information, so we partner with schools, other nonprofits, other community grassroots organizations. We have our own that's called the Community Builders Network. That is a youth and adult partnership within Hampton-Newport News that provides a lot of that substance abuse prevention, mental health promotion, trauma awareness, and community development into the community. And that's actually how I started within my role. I was a young person, a youth in that coalition that grew up into an adult, and that eventually got me into my position as within the CSB.
Wow. So that really gained your trust and gained your attention. And so I'm sure that you can give a lot of advice to people coming. I mean, is there any advice you'd give to people when you're speaking to them from your own experience?
Yeah, with all this work, is like I said, it's building up wellness. So it's about relationships and impact. So how we connect with people, how we share experiences is what forms us. So having those positive impacts, having those good intentions across the board helps curve some of the negative and also buffers how we shape ourselves. So just engaging in those relationships, engaging in that, activating your wellness in other areas of your life.
Right. I mean, absolutely. I can tell how important this is to you. And can you talk a little bit about your work? I know you touched on it, but going into schools, and can you talk about some of the topics you touch on with kids? What are the big things that they might ask you or things that are really important to them to know about?
Yes. So within schools, the most of the work that we do in addressing those mental health aspects. So how anxiety, what is anxiety? I mean, we all have a form of anxiety, but how does it impact your life? Talking about vaping in e-cigarettes. Um, is it better than using cigarettes or tobacco products? And it's not. So just addressing some of those aspects of some of the things that they see on a daily basis that they may not engage in, but how is it affecting, or how can it affect, or how can they um, help their friends? in addressing those topics.
Right. And I mean, I know one thing for kids that's tough is, being the one to sort of say no or being the one to sort of separate themselves from the group. And is that where the, Strength and Families program and feeling that support system at home really comes in? Just sort of let the kid know like they're supported even if they're not doing stuff with their friends.
Definitely, definitely. Let them know that they can make an impact on just one person, if they say no, or they give them all other alternatives to do, or starting a youth group with things that they interest in as together. So that's like the power of prevention right there.
Right. And then, with that, if you feel your kid is struggling, if you feel like your friend is struggling, or you are the one that's struggling, what are the ways to sort of get in touch with CSB, or what are some of the ways that you tell people to either seek out help or seek out help for others?
Gotcha. Yeah. So we have a couple of resource numbers within our agency. So if someone is in an immediate crisis, we have a crisis line. That's 757-788-0011. Um, if you are in a um, immediate crisis, also, there's a text line. That's the crisis text line. That's the national line. There's the suicide prevention line. And then there's also within our agency, we have the peer warm line. That is a way that has a person that has lived experience that can talk with that adult on the services that are available or ways that they can cope with whatever they're going through. So that's our peer warm line at 757-251-2394. Within our agency, we also have our websites that just has an array of information. So that's hnncsb.org. And then our prevention website, which is hnncsbprevention.org.
Those are great numbers to have, and I can tweet those out as well after this, just so people have access to that. The one part of your organization I really wanted to talk with you about too, in terms of care and things that you all provide, or maybe your mission and how you help people, is the trauma-informed care aspect for you all. And I think that probably goes hand in hand with how to get your loved one care, and how to help them. So can you just talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, so within prevention, we address the trauma and exactly what is trauma, how does it affect your brain development, how it affects certain health outcomes, how does it affect your decision making. So we do different trainings and programs that address that trauma. And then within our agency, making sure that we address people as a person first language. So we are looking at the person as an individual instead of what they're going through or what happened to them. We're addressing them as an individual, as a person, to provide that individual care. Because trauma affects a person on an individual basis. So it's not a cookie cutter um, treatment plan that can address that person going through that trauma that might be having other symptoms of a mental health illness. So addressing that as an individual on an individual basis for that individual care.
Right. So care for you all, it's very multifaceted. There's a lot of aspects in terms of, what you've talked about today. So like the family structure, support, knowing what might be going on with that person, why they need care. So, I mean, how do you all, figure out the way to help that person the most with the trauma-informed care? Do you all, have therapy available? Do you all try to figure out what the root of the problem is? Could you talk a little bit about how you might go about figuring out the best way for care for someone?
Yeah, so we offer a lot of individual and family counseling and therapy. It starts with our point of entry with doing that assessment. So either through our rapid access services that we do that assessment to see what type of connections, if they need case management, medication management, family counseling, medication treatment. So just individualizing from that assessment what other services that we could connect internally and externally to best support that individual.
Right. And as somebody that might be watching their loved one struggle or they're struggling, I mean, what are some tips you would give somebody in terms of helping somebody reach out, to you or to the organization? Is it just having all the support, or what are some of the tips you give families when they're trying to figure out how to help somebody in their own family?
Gotcha. So looking for those signs and symptoms, what they're displaying. If they are being more isolated or being more manic or being more agitated by like different aspects. So reaching out for the support, researching some things for yourselves, but also engaging in some of those community resources that are online or what are hotline numbers to connect them with support. They may not want the support at that moment, but it's best to give them that information, provide some of that information so that there is some support that can help them overcome what they're going through.
And I did want to ask, what are ways that people in the community can help? Either help get the word out about this, what CSB might offer for them, or what can people in the community do in their own schools or organizations, to promote, drug prevention and advocacy.
Gotcha. So yeah, looking up information, the knowledge is power. So knowing as much as you can about what some things that you've noticed about people, but then also looking at people as individuals instead of what's wrong with them or instead what happened to them. Because everyone has an individual story. So everything's not going to be on a broad way of addressing a issue at the same way. So everybody needs that individualized care and support. So they should be treated as an individual.
Right. And that goes back to that trauma-informed care, really separating everyone for what they need and maybe not what the group needs.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And then I did want to touch on that you all did have a Red Ribbon event last weekend. If you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that last weekend was our second annual Red Ribbon Community Walk and Celebration with a couple of the schools in Newport News. We did I believe it was for like 2 hours. We did a community walk at one of the parks and just provided information about medication safety, the importance of locking up your medication, keeping medication out of the reach of children, and just in those in general aspects of keeping yourself safe and your children safe regarding medication.
Right. And is that a big, tip in what you tell people to in their home life so people don't have access, making sure that, drugs are put away? I mean, is talking about drug education at home, just in terms of having conversations with your kids, super important, like keeping that open conversation going?
Yep, keeping that open conversation about all substances. So having that expectation in your house, in your family dynamic, but also keeping yourself safe and your children safe. So having even your alcohol locked up, having it out of reach of children, your medication, those over-the-counter medications, not having your child give their dose themselves, but reading the labels and doing the right instruments and providing that medication on a safe way.
Mm-hmm. And I know it is Red Ribbon Week, and it's something, though, the entire year, that we should focus on is drug prevention advocacy. But is there anything in particular, with the theme of especially helping youth not, be involved, that is a big thing that you're thinking of this week, or something that you wish you knew maybe when you were younger, just like a tip or advice that really has stuck with you?
That stuck with me is just not leaving your medication just out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping your medication on your nightstand or on the countertop that can be easily accessed. Even though it's a child bottle cap, some children can still maneuver and get their way into medication. So just making sure that you keep safe your medication out of reach and keeping it locked up and away from the reach of children.
Right, right. Well, thank you so much for speaking. I don't know if you have anything else that you really feel like is important to touch on today as the prevention coordinator? I'm sure you get a million questions with every teaching that you do and with everything you do in schools and with community organizations around the area. So I don't know if there's anything else that people ask, daily to you that you feel like is a big highlight that we missed.
Yeah. Just engaging in wellness. So there's 8 areas of our lives that we interact on a daily basis. So that's our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health, our social health, our spiritual, occupational, environmental, and financial. So once all of those 8 areas of your lives are on track, or you have a plan to engage in that wellness, it just helps flow your life a little easier. So just engaging in that wellness, focusing on maybe one of those areas on a regular basis, just engage and be well.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is such a big key, as you spoke about, for this. So those 8 areas of your life, I'm going to be thinking about that today. But Anton, thank you so much for speaking with us. I really appreciate it. I think hopefully this will start a good conversation in someone's home that's watching this, and they'll feel open to, for the resources that you will offer, if that's something they need, or hopefully this allows the conversation to begin for someone.
Thank you. I appreciate you allowing me to share.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just wanted to say that the numbers that you spoke about, I will get them from you, and I can put those out so that everyone has access to them. And this will also be on YouTube, Facebook, saved. So if anyone wants to go back and watch the conversation again, or wants to hear about something specifically that you might have said that they want to retouch on, or maybe share with somebody, that'll be available for them as well. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you all for joining us in that conversation, and thank you for joining us on WAVY Digital Desk. We'll see you again next time.